we're going live. Hey, look, we're live.
Hi.
And we're in shadow.
Yeah.
Let's try to fix it.
Well, there's reasons for that.
Yeah, it's not sprinkling too bad, eh?
We're dodging a rainstorm. We're just on the edge of Tropical Storm Celia down here. And we think it's deciding to head out to the ocean, but I don't think it's completely decided yet.
Look, it's less shadow.
Yeah. Right on. Hi. You know what I also want to show you? Can I just bring this around and show them? This is our little friends here. This is Dude. Hi, Dude. And this is Gilda. Hello, Gilda. Good morning. And they're taking it easy. And I also want to show you the flowers and the garden. This wonderful place that, oh, well, there's one of the birdies that Ani's mothers have made available to us. And man, we're glad to have it. So we're just setting up here. And we'll be with you in a minute, as Ani says. And when we are with you, you'll be watching This Is Now, Bridge to a Better World. And we're even more last minute than usual because we just got back from a little trip within Mexico and just found it hard to wake up this morning. We went to Tequila and I got some tequila. Let me tell you, I went into Jose Cuervo Distillery to buy a bottle of tequila. And they have a gift shop. You can tour it and they'll show you how they do it. We didn't have time for that, as it turned out, but we did pop into the gift shop. And I got to tell you, it's like entering a bank vault because they have very expensive bottles of tequila. I bought a moderately expensive bottle. I'm not ashamed to say because I will make good use of it when I get home. And it's just kind of fun to have a bottle of tequila from Tequila. And right now we are hoping to get home. We're trying to repair the van that we want to drive north through the Sonoran Desert. And since we will be going through the Sonoran Desert, which is famous for its heat, we are making sure that the air conditioning is working. And this will be, let's see, right now, this is the fourth attempt to repair the air conditioning, starting with an absolute failure by a little air conditioning shop that's on, and I would warn you about it. I mean, honestly, on Powell Boulevard, not so far from the bridge in Portland. They replaced, the compressor was bad. They replaced the compressor. They didn't do anything else. They didn't check the lines at all, and so it all leaked out, and it only worked for a couple of days after that. And of course, we couldn't get a re-repair because we were on the road, or they were on the road. And I actually took a plane here much later. And well, so we're hoping to get that repaired today or tomorrow. And it'll be sad to leave Dude and Gilda and the birdies and the mamas and this wonderful place, which since it's changing hands, and I don't care exactly who buys it. Or let me rephrase that. I don't care who they are buying it because I don't know them. I can say that this has got the greatest coffee that you could have, which is a good thing because it's helping you wake up. And when we get on to things, we're going to be talking about why totalitarian societies, like Republicans, for example, hate GLBTQ so much. There's a reason GLBTQ is dangerous to them. And we're also going to talk about the black box voting phenomenon. If you were one of the listeners to me and Ani years ago in the 90s and also in the early 2000s on KBOO Portland, then you know that we went on, and Ani did direct interviews. I can't remember. I think maybe once I personally interviewed Bev Harris of Black Box Voting, and she is not so active now. So to find out why things are different, it takes some research. And when I say research, I mean turning to actual experts and real historians as opposed to the QAnon version of research, which is looking to any self-confirming blogger that takes your fancy. And I hope that I have gained a little respect from the work that I've done for decades in radio since, let's see, I guess my first radio broadcast was in 81 with KTEZ. I did the news at the top of the hour. That was fun. I enjoyed it. It was one of those cases where you had a teletype. Before the Moonies bought UPI, they actually had teletypes, those clickety clackety things that you hear on old movies. And it had a system of bells that told you how horrible things were. If you heard 2 bells, something awful had happened, like an earthquake. If you heard 3 bells, then like war was breaking out, and it was a 10-bell system. So when that bell rang, we jumped. So you want to start off with this? Or are we,
You want me to start off?
No, I'm just saying, are you ready to
No,
roll?
yes. We
All
are
right.
all, but I think you should actually put yourself in the frame.
I should just get right in here.
It's not just a microphone anymore, darling.
Yeah, and we don't have a printer here, so I won't be able to rip and read.
You're still, kind of just in your chin self.
Right. I'm just going to have to do what I can here. Let's see, how about if I pull my computer over here. Okay, so actually the first thing I want to talk about is that black box voting. I've got my notes on my cell phone, so I'm going to have to come over here. And you may recall, as I was starting to say, back in the day, in the 90s and the 2000s, we would have Bev Harris on, and there were huge problems with Diebold-based voting systems. And the problem was that, frankly, Republicans would simply hack them, and they were very hackable in various ways. And let's see, I believe I pulled up a little information from the Columbus Free Press on that, which I want to share with you. And the title of it is Diebold Indicted. Its specter still haunts Ohio elections. And that's from an article from 2013. And let me share a little bit of this with you. It was written by Bob Fitrakis, whose name you may recognize from current publications. I would say leftish, and definitely more presentable publications. He wrote, Diebold, the controversial manufacturer of voting and ATM machines whose name conjures up the demons of Ohio's 2004 presidential election irregularities, is now finally under indictment for a worldwide pattern of criminal conduct. And he wrote, federal prosecutors filed charges against Diebold Incorporated on Tuesday. And that's Tuesday, October 22nd, 2013, alleging that the North Canton, Ohio-based security and manufacturing company bribed government officials and falsified documents to obtain business in China, Indonesia, and Russia. Diebold has agreed to pay $50 million to settle the 2 criminal counts against it. And skipping ahead on that, in 2005, the Free Press exposed that Matt Damschroeder, Republican chair of the Franklin County elections in 2004, reported that a key Diebold operative told Damschroeder he made a $50,000 contribution to then Ohio Secretary of State J. Kenneth Blackwell. Remember that name? I mean, if you heard my protests, my broadcasts and Ani's broadcasts from back in the day, you remember Blackwell. Made $50K contribution to Ohio Secretary of State Blackwell's political interests while Blackwell was evaluating Diebold's bids for state purchasing contracts. Damschroeder admitted to personally accepting a $10,000 check from former Diebold contractor Pasquale Patsy Galena made out to the Franklin County Republican Party. That contribution was made while Damschroeder was involved in evaluating Diebold bids for county contracts. And it was the Diebold machines. They changed their name to, oh gosh, what was it? Election. I can't remember what they changed their name to. It doesn't matter. No. reputable person uses those debold machines anymore because they did flip votes and they were hackable in various ways. I remember that one of the ways that made it onto the press was just coming in and jacking a thumb drive into it. I guess thumb drives are getting as ancient as floppy disks now. But another way to do it was the debold machines had a infrared port available. So all you had to do was be in the vicinity of the debold machine, and just the same as with a television remote, you could hack it and tell it what to say by pressing the buttons on your device. You didn't even have to be facing it. Same as your remote. Pardon me. Yes.
I'm gonna interrupt your train of thought.
Yes, please.
And I'm gonna ask us to pull the table forward.
Pull the table forward? Okay, yeah.
Because
seems like maybe it's not going to rain.
The sky is lightning, and frankly,
it gives us a better chance of connectivity.
The signal is much better.
Okay, you get that in, I'll get this in, and maybe all the drinks won't spill.
Nah, I can't do that.
You can't do that?
Not with that arm. Sorry. Oops.
Oh, well, that's right.
I have an arm injury. It's true.
Yeah,
okay, ready?
She did a little informal acrobatics yesterday.
Yeah, day before.
Day before yesterday. It's all a blur. What can I say?
Like my knee. My knee is rather a blur.
Okay, so that's so much for debold. Debold's gone in the systems that are in use now and that have been accused by the Republicans of throwing the election away from Trump. Are different machines, different systems, and this is a different environment because the laws have changed after all that stuff, and people who manufacture the machines aren't allowed to hide their software from inquiry. And as you may recall, after the election, there were more than 60 court cases in which all of the evidence that the Trump administration could possibly gather, that Giuliani could put together, was brought to the courts, and they had their accusations against, let's see, it was Dominion voting and the other one, I'll think of it in a minute. And none of those, they did not prevail. And there's good reasons for it. The situation has completely changed. And what we have now is, let me grab my notes here, I'm sorry. Might take me a second to find it. What we have now is by golly.
What was it like?
I may have to dig it out of my history. Anyway, Dominion Voting Systems is a Canadian voting system. Is not connected with Venezuela. There was a voting system in use that actually was connected with Venezuela, and if you believe the demonization of Venezuela, then that would be enough to make you think that maybe the election was thrown. But the problem is none of the other companies' machines were in use in the contested states. In other words, it is not possible to say that any of the close states could have been decided by those machines. And as has often been commented, the results from those machines where Republicans were elected to high office in the states was accepted by the Republicans without question. Oh, there's some of my favorite birds.
That is a kiskadee.
Yeah, kiskadee. Right back to you. I see them anyway. So the thing is, Dominion Voting System is now successfully pushing back on all of this. Let me see if I've got the text. If you can cover me for just a second. Figure out what happened. Oh, it was
the lovely thing is I'm not sure where her train of thought is going, so it's hard to cover.
Yeah, ES&S was the other machine back in the day, back in 2012. And those things were hackable, were hacked by Republicans, and the Democrats also used them to push out unacceptably left candidates. So what I was going to say is, when the accusation came out from Trump, my first reaction was to jump and say, "Oh, that's possible. That could have been done. But when I looked into it, no, it could not have been done. And let's see, I know what to do. I hit the little button marked history. What has been done is that cleaning machines have been brought up and brought into use, and that would be why Dominion voting systems is prevailing. This history that I'm talking about may actually be in my cell phone.
But I think you probably remember.
I probably remember it. Yes, I like being able to quote it.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just going to check my history on that. Let's see. Pardon me. Yes. Okay.
There's a lot to be said for the corruption of the Diebold machines back in 2004 and in 2000. You can follow Greg Pallas and his writings on that subject. Also, there's a really good article from Chris Hitchens in Vanity Fair about the 2004 election and how it was actually stolen. These are facts and history, but those elections that were actually stolen, remember hanging chads, and the machines that actually flipped the votes, the Diebold machines that the Cheney family was somehow connected to, and that was what I could not find at the press of a button. But a little digging will bring that back. I remember my interviews with Bev Harris, and that was all very well documented, very well laid out. Completely unlike any of the accusations that have been tossed case after case as just scurrilous with the new machines.
Is that scurrilously and spurious?
Yeah, it's
I like that. I'm going to start using that now.
Please do. Are you ready to start talking again?
Just about.
Okay.
So, Dominion Voting Systems is a company that sells, and this is from Wikipedia, that sells electronic voting hardware and software, including voting machines and tabulators in the United States and Canada. The company's headquarters are in Toronto, Ontario, and Denver, Colorado. It develops software and offices in the United States, Canada, and Serbia. Dominion produces electronic voting machines. When I heard Dominion, I thought it was from the South. It's from Canada. The voting machines allow voters to cast their votes electronically, as well as optical scanning devices to tabulate paper ballots. Dominion voting machines have been used in countries around the world, primarily in Canada and the United States. Dominion systems are employed in Canada's major party leadership elections, and they are also employed across the nation of Canada in local and municipal elections. Dominion products have been increasingly used in the United States in recent years. Pardon me again, this is from Wikipedia. In the 2020 United States presidential election, equipment manufactured by Dominion was used to process votes in 28 states, including the swing states of Wisconsin and Georgia. And now again, that other voting machine company that is connected with Venezuela and that the Republicans complain about was not involved in any of the swing states. So that's how easily that is dismissed. It reminds me when a friend of mine, who I'll call T, was accused of the most, elaborately sadistic rape scheme, and was, formally charged with it and had to go to court. And he did go to court and raised his defense, which was during the period of time, which is supposed to have been years, of him doing that in, I believe it was Texas.
Your story. I have no idea.
He lived in Oregon. He hadn't been to Texas. And so the accusation was thrown out after a great deal of expense. And now his name is permanently associated online and with anyone who looks him up with these horrible accusations, even though it is so easily dismissed. And this is true also of Dominion voting. These are good machines, and the reason they're good machines is because the Diebold machines were so horrible, so hackable, so corrupt. The company, as I was saying, paid money we know at least to the Ohio Secretary of State, and God knows how many others. And there's a lot of stories to tell about how hackable those were, and I think personally, and this is just my opinion, that when Obama won the election nationwide, and Turd Blossom, what was Turd Blossom's actual name? Um, George Bush's helpmate.
Cheney, Rove.
No, Rove, Karl Rove. When Karl Rove heard the news and lost his mind on air, it was because he had arranged to flip the votes on those machines. And this is why both Republicans and Democrats, I mean, that was the final straw, because, if it can be hacked one way, it can be hacked another way. And I think that those machines actually were reverse hacked to show the true vote, probably by Anonymous, which was pretty active at that time. So now we have Dominion machines. Now, going back to Wikipedia, Trump and various surrogates promoting conspiracy theories falsely alleged that Dominion was part of an international cabal to steal the election from Trump, and that it used its voting machines to transfer millions of votes from Trump to Biden. And as I was saying, without further and detailed information, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh shit, maybe you actually did win, because I knew that was possible. Not only possible, but had been done several times. And when the Republicans did it and won, or when the Democratic Party leadership did it and won their way, they managed to repress all action to counter the success of those elections. And I think that was what Karl Rove was counting on. And when Anonymous, I love the moment, you can still see it on videotape. I love the moment when the states went blue and Karl Rove, who had been so sure that his boss was going to win, just absolutely was flummoxed, flabbergasted, all of those things that you say when someone is so surprised they don't know what to do. So now we have Dominion machines. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency was formed after all of those shenanigans, and it was in force during the Trump administration. And so they were the first to check out those allegations, and they said that they were false. The Trump administration's CISA said that the allegations that the Dominion votes had been flipped were false. And the reaction was that Trump immediately fired the head of the CISA. These conspiracy theories, going back to Wikipedia, were further discredited by hand recounts of the ballots, because this is another thing that was made possible after all of that debold machine crap. And it found those states found that Dominion voting machines had accurately tabulated votes, that any error in the initial tabulation was human error, and that Biden had defeated Trump in both battleground states.
I don't think there's really any question about that, right? At this point, there's just really no question.
No, I would say that there is a question. It needs, because they repeat this, because Republicans and the QAnon repeat this sort of thing so much, there needs to be very specific and confirmable countering to those claims, instead of just saying, oh, that's nonsense. We need to be able to say, here's exactly why it's bullshit, and here's why, with an open source voting code and all of the reforms that have been put in place, you cannot hack the machines in the way that they were described. Now, I will not say that voting machines cannot be hacked. It is possible, and I'll bet there's a way to do it with these Dominions. But the reason Dominion is now winning, and they are winning in a huge way, the reason Dominion is winning in court is because of all these reforms, and Dominion's voting machines are clean. The election is clean. Trump lost, and that's all there is to it.
Right.
So, but I would say that you have to really be. They don't want to believe this. It is, at this point, is extremely embarrassing, humiliating for them to accept that they have been launching on nearly a civil war on the basis of these allegations, which are absolutely and demonstrably false.
I would say that those that really want to launch the civil war they weren't looking for this for the excuse, right? They just want to do it because, and let's look at your second subject, because things are not the way they remember them being. Things are not, they don't live and leave it to Beaverland. And they don't like that.
They don't like that. Okay, let's.
And so, we know that that election was not stolen, right? And there's been this January 6th committee, you know, the proceeds of that have been worthwhile to keep up on. But the premise that the election was stolen, we know, is false.
Smartmatic is the other group of machines I was trying to talk about. Smartmatic was not
Okay.
in use in any of the contested states.
Cool. So, but why are they so willing to launch, and why are they so ready to launch a civil war? Why were they so ready to throw everything behind Trump and not believe any other source?
Yes, this is something to really discuss, I think, in depth. I mean, and really what we're asking is, how does fascism work? Why are their minds set in this way? I was commenting last night to Ani that when I went to school in Texas, it was in it was during at first, the Sputnik hysteria. And this is a hysteria that almost no one remembers because it was pretty much confined to the schools. And Americans were, after the Russians launched the first artificial satellite, we say satellite now, but they used to say artificial satellite because the moon is a satellite of the Earth, the Earth's a satellite of the sun, etc. It was mind-blowing. It was confirmable by anyone with a ham radio who could pick up the damn thing beeping as it went across the sky. And suddenly Americans thought, we have skimped on our education and this won't do. And so when I went to elementary school, at a new elementary school, the place was just, you would be astonished at the amount of wealth that was spent on the thing. I went to, it was called Camelot Elementary because it was in a subdivision called Camelot, which is a suburb of San Antonio. And the architecture of the building reflected the idea of the Sputnik hysteria designers to open the minds of Americans and to develop a greater technological capacity with a new generation of smarter and better educated kids. For example, it had 2 stories, and there was a great circle in the middle with a little bar around it. And you could look down into the library, which they called the Learning Center. Everything was just as modern as it possibly could be. And this, when I got to middle school, which at that time they called junior high school, I got into also a brand new building, and it was even more jet age. It was, for example, we had binocular microscopes that would just knock your socks off.
Mm-hmm.
And so this money just kept pouring into the education system until there was a tremendous backlash from guess who Republicans who realized that when their kids were well educated, they didn't recognize them. They started thinking for themselves, and that drove them nuts. And they started cutting money to education, and we see the result now. But I want to say that trans and LGBTQ is very useful to society because the fact is human sexuality and orientation is vastly more varied than is acceptable to totalitarian societies. It is irrepressible because it is natural and emanates from the core of one's being. And being open about everything about GLBTQ, and including the T, since there's now a backlash against that from GLB, as we've heard from Britain, is a good way of fighting totalitarianism because it promotes the honesty and recognizes the natural variety of human beings. I would say that all human beings, if we're really honest about it, are to some degree GLBTQ at some point in their lives because there's no such thing.
Well, there's the Kinsey study, right? That was done in the 60s.
That is, so old, so outdated. But even
so old and so outdated, but it also pointed to the fact that most people had experiences or thoughts those directions.
Yes, absolutely.
And so it's been known for 50 years, right? And hey, in the early 70s, 72, being gay or lesbian or bi was actually taken out of the DSM-IV. We were no longer considered mentally ill just because we were able to love and fall in love with and have sexual attraction to members of the same sex.
Right. And if you let me jump in, the DSM-4 did pathologize transgender,
Yes,
but in a
it's,
less
we've now gone on to DSM-5.
Yeah, now we're on DSM-5, and transsexuality is simply transgenderism is simply realized.
So
Is simply recognized, and I use it as I say transgenderism in the scientific context. This is I realize that socially this is an offensive term, but the fact that there are transgender people is now recognized by the scientific community.
it's socially unacceptable to say transgender.
Transgenderism, I've been told, is offensive, which is surprising to me as a transsexual.
Whatever. So, but can we get to the substance of the point?
Oh, this is part of it.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
The thing is, being open about this opens the society to this honesty and exposes the psychological oppression of men and the immoral profiteering that exists from women. Because if you examine anti-GLBTQ ideology, it generally devolves to a hatred of femininity. And this results in, frankly, the immoral profiteering from the labor of women in various ways. And certainly one of the biggest ways is saying that all child rearing is the responsibility of women, and freeing men from this, and then paying men more because they don't have to support uteruses that are ready for the reproduction of the human race, and they don't have to, because of the social rules, they don't have to take care of the children in any way unless they're, forced by the court to pay some child support. And child support is, under this system, child support is a very important thing. If we lived in an open society and men took care of children in the same way that women are expected to, I would say that child support would be a thing that would kind of go away. The idea, part of this comes from the idea that men are stronger than women. This is also an illusion, if you think about it, because from 14 to 70, men, by and large, are much stronger than women. But girls are equal or stronger than boys from, especially in the preteen years. And from 70 to 90, it's pretty clear to me that most women are more mobile and capable than men. So men, under the system of homophobia, I'll say, men are deprived of the complexity and range of their emotions, and women are deprived of justified anger and competitive, ambitious drives. And this is the sort of thing that has been well examined by feminists, and that's one reason why I object when the TERF phenomenon occurred, and these women who were so opposed to transgenders, to transgender people, some of them are actually feminists, and most of them aren't. They don't read feminists. They don't know. I'd
actually go to say that
feminism.
They're not feminists. Period.
And and they are simply
even the ones that have read the theories. That's not the feminism I was raised with, because feminism meant self-determination for all people. Feminism meant and means the right to be your truly authentic self, and to actually validate your gender and your sexual identities. So I want to switch. Can I?
I'm not done.
Okay. Carry on then.
You want to switch topics?
No. Carry on, please, by all means.
Okay, well, there's a direct connection with the support of totalitarian regimes and the rejection of GLBTQ. There's an abstract that you can read called Homosexuality and Totalitarianism, and it's in PubMed.gov in the National Library of Medicine. And I'll just read you the abstract, which is just a couple of sentences. And this is from 1997. Since the dissolution of communism left the right with no unifying enemy, some conservatives may be turning to the gay world as the new evil empire. This article explores the ideology that underpins the recent upsurge of gay baiting Its central thesis is that in identifying the homosexual as the demonic other, the cultural right is offering us another form of ersatz Christianity masquerading as tradition, but actually infected with the virus of modernity. The paper classifies homophobia as an essentially secular phenomenon reminiscent of other ideologies which have arisen as a substitute for religion. And of course, we know historically the fascists are very much into homophobia. There's another article that I'll read just a couple sentences from. It's on adcmemorial.org. It's from the Anti-Discrimination Center. The bits and pieces. Yeah.
Carry on. I'm sorry.
The bits and pieces of information on the persecution of gay people in Chechnya that trickled to the media scare one with the scale, purposefulness, and somewhat radical brutality of violence against the victims. At the same time, it makes us recall other very recent and no less terrifying events, such as the persecutions of LGBTI persons in the Donbass region. Now, this was published in 2017, and they're talking about the persecution of LGBTI persons in the Donbass regions by US-supported, CIA and NED-supported Nazis who were at the forefront. And this is where I risk getting permanently censored. The US supported these Nazis and supported this anti-GLBTQ oppression. They write very few of those who had escaped from the hell, which is now taking place in Donetsk, again, this is said in 97, and Luhansk, decided to speak out. Most of the LGBTI persons who had experienced the horrors of violence and torture there prefer not to recall their experience. According to a gay person from Luhansk, violence, including sexual violence, had often been used to further humiliate homosexuals. It is not something people are ready to tell, even their closest friends, especially for those who stayed in the Donbass. Disclosure of any such information could result in increased risks of new repression. It would seem that people subjected to repression in Chechnya should have more opportunities to protect themselves. They go on to say that the war is over and they have those opportunities. But the U.S. is very much involved in repressing and supporting homophobia, let's say.
Okay.
And it does this, and it's because the CIA has always supported totalitarian regimes, and that aspect of it is psychologically very important to the mission of the CIA, and this is why they like Nazis so much. So now I'm done.
Okay, so what I was wanting to draw together here is that earlier topic of it really looks like some folks are heading for that civil war in the States. And it's a really uncomfortable situation. And there are two really landmark Supreme Court decisions in the last 2 days that widen the gap that well, I'm seeing as distinct. I mean, certainly these decisions are not tied together. I am seeing a way that they do, and it is not at all pretty. Okay? So, one, today the Supreme Court actually overturned Roe versus Wade. To me, that is the top story. That is my focus. That to say that basically it overturns privacy rights, that overturns so much, and it doesn't immediately overturn them, but it kicks open the door. As we say when we play Munchkin, we kick open the door and see what monsters lie behind. And these are big monsters, right? So women and trans men, anyone bearing a uterus does not have the right to control their uterus, right? That is now the state's rights, and they can decide whether or not that uterus is forced to bear a child, and under what circumstances, right? The government gets to decide if abortion is accessible in cases of rape or incest, and how one has to prove that and how one has to report that. The government gets to decide, what kind of birth control one can use, because honestly, there are legislators who are looking at conception not actually being the beginning of life, but life begins before conception. That's right. We're back to the Pythonian world, Monty Pythonian world of every sperm is sacred. And so, what types of birth control can be outlawed following this decision? And how intrusive can the state be on uterine bearers, right? And this is all based in misogyny. It's all based in uh, misogyny, and it's very tightly tied to homophobia and transphobia, right? The same people that want to control uteruses want to deny the existence of trans people, period. And so, yesterday, the Supreme Court struck down a New York state law that required applicants for a license to carry a gun outside their homes to have proper cause to do so. The court said that violated the Second Amendment, and their ruling went on to actually broaden the Second Amendment past where it has been. And so, this after 280 some odd mass shootings in the first month, 5.5 months of the year, the Supreme Court broadens the ability to have guns and denies the ability for people to control their bodies. And I won't say people, I will say people that bear uteruses. They think, because they're conservatives that already don't entertain the idea that trans men exist. I mean, that's just not a part of the reality. So they think they are just controlling women, but in fact, they are controlling trans men as well. But, why would they care about that? They deny the fact that trans people exist in the first place and are trying to legislate it to be so.
It's of a piece, as you
It
say.
is indeed of a piece. And so that's where my thoughts are this morning, that we are heading for this. No, we're not heading for it. We're on an ever more divergent path between those that seek actual freedom and autonomy, civil liberties and civil rights, justice and communitarianism, and again, sovereignty over our bodies, are on this one path, and this other path are those that seek to control, those that seek the right to bear guns, those that seek the right not to wear masks, because that's infringing on bodily autonomy, but the right to abortion and birth control, please. Make that make sense to me. Oh, it does when we are looking at a fascist world, when we are looking at a fascist takeover where, men are men and slightly distant, just ever so slightly different from grizzlies, and women are petite little homemakers that don't say boo to their shadows. And so, going back to that fictitious world of Father Knows Best and, the beeve, going back to that fictitious world that they long for, it does not exist, but they are ready to legislate and kill to try to make it so. Those are my thoughts this morning.
It is of a piece. And if you think about gun legislation and the way that gun rights are treated in the courts, the people who are really pushing for the right to carry around a machine gun or a pistol are white men. And why is this? It's because they are the hegemons, and part of maintaining the hegemony. That's a good word. I used to say hegemony.
I do too.
Part of maintaining the hegemony is intimidating people, and it's very intimidating when someone walks into your damn coffee shop with a machine gun, and they know it, and that's why they wear the things. And there's jokes about them having little penises and such, and there's a certain truth to that. But it's all of a piece. And Jabra, it's also of a piece to talk about LGBTQ repression in terms of denial of abortion rights.
Well, absolutely.
It's all the same fascism, and we need to fight fascism. We need to understand it very directly, because fascism is advanced. The Nazis particularly advanced fascism to a deeply powerful psychological degree. Their control of their state was scientifically designed and still very powerful today. And the American fascists and their users in the CIA are the descendants and the recipients of this powerful information on how to manipulate people into fascism.
Right. And you have also just the uneducated masses and uneducated by design, right? We've cut public schooling monies. We've cut any kind of support for the teaching of critical thinking, debate, and logic in favor of, just going into business and such. We've treated our education system as vocational schools at best, and really have taken out critical thinking and independent thinking, creative thinking loops wherever we can. And I think that's probably by design, right? We teach uh, by rote, we teach to the test. We don't teach to actually um, uh, get kids and therefore people to think critically and learn throughout their lives. So there, we are easily manipulated as a country, and and that's a problem, right? So what are we going to do about it? How do we rise up? How do we say enough is enough when uh, it's just clear that the powers that be, um, aka the Supreme Court, and the seemingly inactive Democrats in Congress and Senate, I mean, at least ineffective, and Biden, what's happening, right? What are we going to do? The system has actually failed us. We know that. It's been failing us since its inception. But now what do we do? Um, mass indirect action, right? Non-participation in the system. I always liked the phrase, let's overgrow the government. Let's just do something else and withdraw our support of a system that wants us dead. That's really the only place I've gotten to this morning.
That's well, yeah. And if you read the uh, the platform of the Republican Party in Texas as they put it together, please read that platform. Read all of it. It won't take very long, and you'll be astonished.
It really sounds like a satire.
They want wire, and they want to kill us.
Yeah. Um, so again, it's interesting how their right to bodily autonomy and their right not to wear a mask. It's basically anything that is thoughtful or thinking of the health of others is anathema, and anything that puts them first and their right to kill anyone they want is primary. Ponder that. Shall I start reading my cards?
Yes, please do.
And so, as we look at this next week going on, the Six of Cups, which is about nostalgia, right? This actually could well be them looking for the world that never existed, looking for a time and a place that does not, that has never, it's the Ozzy and Harriet, right? And so, knowing that this is a false premise, what do we do? And turning inwards, and listening to our highest selves, actually making sure that we are connected to source, that we are grounded, and that we are quiet enough to, uh, when we ask the universe what to do, that we are quiet enough to hear the answers. It's a time of being a bit still and making sure that we are very tuned in to our intuition. It is, and I have to say, the Supreme Court decision exemplifies this card for me. It is bitter disappointment. It is feeling that we've been left out, that the universe has turned its back on us, that we are not being cared for. But what we need to realize is that there are other forces. They are working behind the scenes, and that ultimately we are um, we can find those gifts. We can find goodness, but we have to first get through the mourning period and the disappointment and look around to see that new opportunities are emerging.
Interesting. Cups in today's reading.
And ultimately, here we are. The Two of Wands talks about um, taking action, receiving the information to find the way to go, and using our will to direct us. It is the flow of creativity. It is using our will and our creative selves to move forward in the situation. And so that's what I have for this week. And I thank you all for being here with us.
Yeah, and thanks for the comments.
And with that, shall we?
Yes, from Mexico and to all the ships at sea. We love you. See you next week.
Cheers.
We hope.